FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Today's show is brought to you by Blue Sky Uranium Corporation. Blue Sky has first mover advantage in Argentina in the world's newest uranium and vanadium district. With an existing near-surface deposit that's open for expansion, Blue Sky also controls a massive district-scale land package with mineralization along a 145-kilometer-long trend. Blue Sky possesses tremendous exploration upside and is an excellent leverage play on rising uranium and vanadium prices. The company is run by a best-in-class management and technical team with proven exploration and development success in Argentina. Blue Sky Uranium trades under the ticker symbol BSK on the Toronto Venture Exchange and as BKUCF on the OTC. For more information and to stay on top of the latest news, go to blueskyuranium.com. That's blueskyuranium.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 5/20/19. That means there's only 11 days left to this month. Well, you might have been well served by selling in May and going away, or even if you didn't sell, if you just went away, you probably would be happier right now with all of the crazy news going on. Trade wars. We've got African swine flu sweeping the Chinese nation. Pork runs on pork. You can't buy pig anymore in Hong Kong. There is not a strip of bacon to be had in the supermarkets. What does it mean for the United States? What does it mean for you? Well, as always, we don't know, but we'll try to give you an idea. Just email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. Well, John Rubino is here with us now to opine on these subjects. So we've got, I guess, a legitimate trade war, although some might call it an economic war, John. What's going on?
Hey, Kerry. Well, you know how in your normal personal life, there's always a kind of a background level of stress, and you deal with that because it's normal to have a few things going on. And then sometimes a whole bunch of things happen at once and it becomes overwhelming. That's kind of how the global economy and the global political system are acting now, where there's just a lot of stuff going on that in the aggregate creates a very scary world out there. Because, the trade war is heating up and getting serious. Huawei, the big Chinese technology company that's one of the leaders in 5G, which is the next level of Wi-Fi out there, that's supposed to be a really disruptive, really important transition. The U.S. is basically blocking them from participating, and they've got a lot of stuff that apparently nobody else makes. So it's disrupting the transition to 5G. And then Google just shut them out of next generation Android updates for smartphones, and Huawei is a big maker of smartphones around the world. So this is very important for China. But if the U.S. has a point in all this, because apparently Huawei's gear was riddled with backdoors and other kinds of surveillance tech that
just like ours.
The Chinese government. Yeah,
just like ours. Cisco routers and Intel microprocessors and all of the chips coming out all had backdoors and all were used for spying. IBM's servers were used for spying, all of them. So, but all of a sudden we're upset when China does it. So go figure.
Well, China's done it on a vast scale for the last few years and gotten away with it. And so I don't think it's a bad thing that we're trying to clear this stuff up and trying to set rules that everybody.
Yeah, how dare they spy?
Everybody spies and everybody. But it's a mess. But meanwhile, we got that going on, and we've got U.S. naval vessels sailing through the disputed part of the South China Sea, which China claims, and we've got Iran being accused of attacking Saudi Arabia by sabotaging some of their ships and doing some other things, and Trump threatening the end of Iran if they don't stop that stuff. So that sounds to me like a false flag. But
it sure does.
you never know. And so we've got all of this stuff going on, plus a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of technology related stuff going on out there.
I'll tell you what, I never bought a Lenovo desktop. They bought IBM's PC division about 10, 12 years ago already. I never would buy one because, look, I have no idea whether there's anything that I do that's of any interest to any spy. But it was quite clear that Lenovo would become a platform for spyware. There was never a question about it. And sure enough, that came out a couple of years ago as well, that Lenovo computers spy on you. So would you rather have... It really comes down to, would you rather have Google spying on you or the Chinese government? Either way, it's not really a great choice, is it? So
I bought a book the other day from Kevin Mitnick, who's one of the original hackers.
Of course.
From way back when. It's called How to Become Invisible, or The Art of Invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably too technical for me to ever implement a lot of that stuff, but that's worth trying, I think. It's worth doing what we can to make ourselves at least opaque, if not invisible, for all the entities that are trying to spy on us out there, just on principle. Even if we have nothing to hide.
Yeah, and he went to jail.
We really don't care that somebody's reading our emails. It's just,
it's
matter of
none
principle.
of their business. It's like they're being married a couple of times. There's secrets that you keep from your wife, and there's definitely secrets you keep from the government, and there's secrets that you don't want Alexa to know about, and you don't want Apple to know about, and the rest of them, it's called privacy. And yet we have none of it here because Alexa just continually spies on us. I've got my Alexa speaker on my desk here, but I did something wrong and the battery went dead. So I don't think it can spy when the battery's dead. But if that thing is charged, it's spying, and they're just sucking up data. Now the companies market the data. Facebook is in the advertising business, yes, but they're really in the data mining, data sale business. And, big data, it's a huge problem, and it's not being adequately addressed. Even in Europe with the whole general data protection rules, it's just nonsense because it will be ignored. And then they're going to go after hundreds of thousands of companies, and it's just a money grab for the EU. They don't care about privacy. In fact, they're enemies of privacy. This is what happens, John. We've talked about it so many times when industries get concentrated. The government loves concentration because then they go to one company or two companies to get money instead of 15. It's much more efficient and less potential for evasion, tax evasion. But when you have a bunch of little companies competing, they have to be more responsive to the market because the market does not want to be spied on. That much I can tell you. They do care, but if they feel like it's a price they have to pay to get these vital services. And to some extent, you know what, John? They're right.
Well, technology, as it's evolving, is making spying easy for the people who build the tech and manage it.
Making it great again. Making spying great again.
Well, it's tempting, right? If you've got the ability to accumulate information, which is valuable, and nobody's really paying attention to what you're doing, then it's kind of hard to say no to it just based on human nature. We're corruptible, and you give us a certain amount of temptation, a certain amount of potential benefit, and we will be corrupted by that. So you're seeing that everywhere in the tech world. Facebook has been kind of the public face of companies spying on us and using our personal data for their own profit, but everybody else does it. We're coming to a point where this becomes a national debate, and we're probably at some point going to try to implement rules that protect our privacy to an extent. But it's really an uphill battle because you're always fighting the last war. Technology is continually evolving. So you put some controls on last year's most advanced technology, but the next generation of that technology can evade those rules. And then you have to start all over again with new protests and new negotiations and new politicians. And it goes on. And I don't see a real end to it. There's a science fiction writer, famous science fiction writer named David Brin, who wrote a book called The End of Privacy a while back.
Sure.
And his point was that we're just going to have to come to grips with the fact that so much of what we do is potentially public, and there's just no way to stop that because their surveillance gear is getting better all the time, and everything we do online is transparent to the NSA and to the big companies that facilitate what we do online. So all of our banking, all of our communication, an awful lot of what we do behind closed doors, and pretty much everything else we do. They have directional mics now and infrared cameras that can see through walls. They have lip reading artificial intelligence that can photograph you talking from a long way off and tell what you're saying. All of this stuff is either here or it's coming. So
very true.
Privacy as we used to conceive of it is disappearing really quickly.
Hey, what about Amazon? They aren't like the kind of spy system, although their biggest customer appears to be the CIA for their cloud-based spy system. But, just by the books you read, the books you buy online, which most of them are done at Amazon now, they can build a whole profile with you, and they can come up, we didn't even talk about, John, we have to address this issue, but they can come up with that social credit system and basically, marginalize you and deperson you from society. And, even the SATs are getting into the act with your adversity score, because you got to have an adversity score. I mean, hell, I think we all start out with an adversity score of 100, no matter who you are, and you kind of work it down from there. But they don't seem to think of things like that. I mean, why do we need adversity scores? That's really the equivalent of social credit, isn't it?
Well, I think those are kind of two separate things, but they're both kind of pernicious, because the social credit score that China is introducing, they already have this over there, where you have a score that is determined by the government.
Yeah,
that is a measure of your social acceptability, and then you gain or lose based on that score. If your score is low enough, you can't take first-class flights. You can't take certain other modes of transportation. You can't borrow money.
You get lower speed Wi-Fi. They throttle your Wi-Fi. Hey, you only need 100K because you're a subversive, just enough to read your email. Otherwise, you're done. And yeah, it's a horrible, pernicious thing. And that's what the private sector would like to do here. Your credit score is kind of like a social score, a social credit score, if you will, but a little bit different because it's based on objective, quantifiable events, mainly the amount of credit you have and your payment habits. But it really is a private sector social credit score when you get down to it, John.
Yeah, well, we're heading in the direction of stuff like this because it's possible, and it's in the interest of a lot of people to do it. So already, well, I do feel bad for these social networks like Twitter and Facebook in a way, because they're stuck between the First Amendment on the one hand and everybody's pressure on them to cut out dangerous speech or really aggressive speech or whatever. So that,
like you and me, like you and I, we are so dangerous and subversive, John. I know we're against the status quo. That makes us a threat, right?
Well, see, that's the thing. How do you know where to draw the line if you're Facebook? Because at the one end of the spectrum, you've got people inciting murder.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's objectively something that you can legitimately
depending who they want to murder. Yeah.
Right. But then you move further over and it's
you and me, we're pretty harmless.
Expressing insensitive opinions, and you're opposing government policy, and you're advocating for stricter regulation of social networks. Where does Facebook or Twitter or whoever draw that line between acceptable and unacceptable behavior? And we're asking private sector companies that benefit from the accumulation of information, of personal information from their users, to make this decision. And that adds another layer of complexity for them, because if you draw the line too far towards the middle, you lose a lot of money. But if you don't go far enough towards, you see what I'm saying, right?
I totally get it.
It's a tough one for these guys.
Hey, man, it's really scary, because you and I definitely say things that would be offensive to progressives. Like
Well,
Venezuela is a progressive failure. That's
yes,
offensive, right?
that's the thing. When it becomes political speech, and you're talking about different rules you'd like to see enacted or things you'd like to oppose, um, then you get into some really sensitive territory there, because that's what the First Amendment was designed to protect. Mainly was political speech, to allow for a free discourse. In other words, we need to be able to say what we think in order to decide how we want the system to be run. And if you can't say what you think, then the system becomes less perfect than it would have been. We have a country that isn't run as well as it would have been otherwise. And yeah, but we're at the same time asking social media companies to make decisions about.
Oh, no, you and I didn't ask them. They took it upon themselves to do it.
Well, but they're being pushed in that direction by all the people who are appalled by the really, outrageous stuff that's out there.
Well, actually, they're being pushed by people with an agenda who are using the outrageous stuff to push for regulation and to push for control and censorship. So, because one of the biggest proponents of censorship on the web is CNN. They've got a reporter who's assigned to harass. I guess I would call. I don't want to call them right-thinking people, but basically people with divergent views, and try to get them deplatformed from YouTube and Facebook and all of these platforms. It's really pernicious. And yes, there is a thing. You don't want people showing other people on YouTube videos how to make suitcase nukes and how to create bombs that you could just leave at your neighbor's house, or the best way to kill your wife, who's cheating
here's
on
the
you.
really tricky thing, though, Kerry. A lot of that stuff is still protected by the First Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
We're allowed to say stuff like that, even though 99% of the people in the world think it's an outrageous thing to say and a wrong thing to do. We are protected under the First Amendment, and we're allowed to say things like that.
It's you can't promote violence and promote out and out promote illegal activity, right?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the dividing line there.
Yeah, but that line is fuzzy when you're talking about self-defense, or you're talking about political action. The line between advocating violence and educating people becomes fuzzy.
Yes.
And I'm just saying that having private sector companies make these decisions it opens up a can of worms, and it puts a lot of pressure on these companies who really don't. I mean, they would love just to have completely open networks so they can make more money, because the more activity on their networks, the more money they make, because the more personal data they vacuum up.
But John, then they, like Google, they get a bunch of outside companies to determine who's hate speech and who isn't. And who do they pick? The Southern Poverty Law Center, which recently the founder had to step down because he turned out to be a racist. Who would have thunk? And they've done all these nefarious deeds, and they're who's going to judge the judges, right? I mean, so really, it's a quandary. But I think you have to err on the side of free speech and make them common carriers, just like Verizon can't say, John, you've been talking a lot about the gold standard and eliminating the Federal Reserve. We don't like that. So go find another company's network to use, because you can't use Verizon anymore, or AT&T. Or FedEx tells you, John, you've been shipping subversive books. We're just not going to deliver them anymore. Try the post office. So this is what the common carrier is all about. They're a common carrier. They can't discriminate on any grounds other than the fact of whether you're shipping a bomb through the mail or illegal materials. They can't do it. So these things need to be the effect of public utilities that are forced to take divergent views and have to go through a set process to deplatform users whose content is deemed illegal or promoting illegal activity, et cetera. Because you've always been able to buy books on growing marijuana through Amazon, through whatever, even though the act of growing marijuana is illegal in many states still. But
Carrie, that what that sounds like is just recognizing that the First Amendment applies to social media.
Totally, and that they are public utilities. They've transcended the point where they're private businesses able to, well, even a private business, I can't say, I mean, I guess I could try it, and people have done it, but I can't say, if you're progressive, go to the next store. Do not come in here. You will get sued for that probably, and it's probably illegal. And that's effectively what they're doing here to alt-right and right-wing people. Like, I'm sure I was on a list of fake news. I didn't remember your being on it, that somebody once sent me a list of 400 fake news websites. And there we were. I was honored to be on it. But that could be a justification for Google or whomever to shift their algorithms. Google does it in really subversive ways because they don't ban people. They just change the algorithms so you get no traffic. They sandbox you. Well, and that's pretty outrageous too.
We started out with social media being pretty much a free-for-all where
Wild West.
The First Amendment applied, where you could say anything you want and do anything you want. And we got chaos from that, which has led to the kinds of ad hoc regulation that we're seeing now, where Google and Facebook have to figure out what they think is acceptable and what's not acceptable, and then boot people off. And so you get the political biases of the guys who are put in charge of that,
right,
superseding the First Amendment. But when it was total free speech, that wasn't a perfect system either. So what I'm saying is that these new technologies create new problems. Mm-hmm. And we have to work our way through these problems to find some kind of a solution, but it doesn't look like there's any kind of a perfect solution at all. Somebody's always going to be offended one way or another with whatever we come up with, because these are really powerful communication systems that we've never seen before, and we really don't know how to deal with them. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how we work this out, but it's not going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be happy with this because you apparently can't have pure freedom of speech, because that enables a lot of stuff that we don't think is acceptable. But you can't have individual, departments in private sector companies deciding what is and what is not free speech either.
Well,
so I don't know what the solution is.
Well, in law school, we learned that the only limitation on the First Amendment is the time, place, and manner of speech. That's it. So that's the old not yelling fire in a crowded theater cliche. And that makes a lot of sense. And then it's like, you guys can demonstrate here, but maybe we don't want you here at 5 o'clock in the afternoon where you're going to tie up traffic and maybe stop emergency vehicles for coming. And even that is not greatly increased. And then the other thing is, hey, you're having a strike. All right, we don't want you here at 3 a.m. with megaphones screaming because people have to sleep. It's not and maybe we don't even want megaphones when you're demonstrating because it's infringement of all the neighbors of that company. So we've always had that, but this is beyond time, place, and manner, because the place, you don't like it, don't look at it if you're offended. A lot of these people, why they're being deplatformed is because they've been deemed offensive. And that's always been protected speech. The other thing is, look, you could always write a letter to the New York Times and they could decide whether or not to publish it or whether or not to run a story about you and that was their right because they're content creators. But now Google is not a content creator. It's effectively an aggregator. So they have privilege from lawsuits. They can't be sued based upon the content that's been published. But the only reason they get that is because they're an aggregator. Now they're becoming a curator. And that's a big, big problem here because they can't have it both ways. So they will... This is an interesting situation. I think it's going to drag on a while longer. Technology very well might be the cure. The social media monopolies might very well be broken in the future. Anyway, you've got to go, John. So make sure you check out John's site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Ours is financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for both our newsletters, and our Twitter feed is at Kerry Lutz. Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Whether you're listening to this on a podcast platform or you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. Helps get these views out for now anyway, till we get deplatformed. I don't think so. I've never even gotten a strike. So I really doubt that's ever going to happen, but you never know. They might just, Bezos might discover FSN, or Zuckerberg. He might even discover it and decide, no mas, FSN bad, and then it's all over. So that's why you need to think about these things. John, till next week.
All right, Kerry, next week.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.